Thank you. I was going to say, I'm a lot more relaxed being here than where I was recently a few weeks ago out talking at Zappos. And when I was backstage, I found out that they had one of these huge sharks that if you went over the time, they ran out with the shark and chased you off the stage. So I'm assuming that there's no bull or anything that will get me. But I just want to first say what a pleasure it is to be here. As you learn, about our story and what we're doing, you guys have served as a source of inspiration and really the gold standard for what we're trying to do. So it's fabulous to finally get here and be with you. And I'd be remiss without thanking Doug, who we connected with a few years ago, who's really been a confidant, for our organization as we have grown. And he believed in this before anybody did. So I thank you, for that. So what I'd like to do is tell you my story. I'd first like to, we got 2 monitors, okay? I'd like to introduce you to my family. This is my wife Jennifer, my 3 kids, Grayson, Harry, and Charlie, Mickey Mouse, and that's our first visit to Disney, which is kind of like one of those life moments or hallmark moments that I think everybody can relate to in some way. And it all looks perfect there, and you can see how good I look there, right? But in fact, I'm having one of the worst panic and anxiety attacks that I ever had in my life, right there in that picture. And I got everybody faked out. I even have Mickey faked out there. All right, the only person I don't have faked out, unfortunately, is me. And as I tell people, mental illness is invisible and misunderstood, which is a really crappy combination for people. And as my story would go, I grew up in Rhode Island, went to prep school, and then, as Doug said, went to Ohio State on a tennis scholarship where I was captain of the team. I actually, now that we got the tennis thing out, Doug, I was actually one of the winningest players in the history of the school when I graduated. The only guy on that record book with a losing record. But I played a lot of matches. And then after I graduated, I went back home and joined my family's business. And by the time I was 23, it looked like I had the world, seemingly at my feet. But what was really happening is I was losing a battle where my mind was being overtaken by terrible thoughts that I was powerless to fight. In fact, I thought I was going crazy. And fortunately, I had the courage somehow. I made my way to Butler Hospital, which is one of the leading psychiatric hospitals in the country, in Rhode Island. And I was quickly diagnosed with OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder. And for the last 27 years, I've fought a debilitating illness that has tried to rob me at every step of the way, even as I'm here talking to you folks today. For those of you that aren't familiar with this illness, it's characterized by unwanted and unpleasant thoughts that unfortunately carry tremendous levels of anxiety that are impossible to explain. People ask me all the time when I'm traveling, Jeff, what's it like? And the best way that I have found to explain it to people is picture, if you will, you're in an airport, a crowded airport, and you're with your small child, and you turn around for a moment, and then you turn back and there's no kid. I mean, I think everybody can understand, forget anxiety, panic that you feel at that point. Someone that has what I have can feel that exact same level of anxiety and panic over something completely ridiculous. And if that's not bad enough, what it forces you to do, it forces you into compulsions. And when I say compulsions, I'm not talking about the stuff, OCD has been popularized on TV as a hand-washing disease, and people think of it like that. For me, it comes in the form of mental rituals, where I actually will have to repeat things a certain amount of times in my head, in a certain amount of spots, all trying to somehow lower that anxiety level that your kid is lost. And this can go on for hours, sometimes days on end. So that's what someone like myself has to deal with. One of the ways that I found to even give some people some more insight is through my own artwork. And behind me, this is a painting that I did called Howard Hughes. It can happen to anybody. Hughes had all the money in the world. Money cannot buy you out of mental illness. And in fact, Hughes probably died. He suffered from OCD like I do, and he probably died because of it, because he could not leave his house to get medical help that would have saved his life. In this painting, you see Hughes in a different part of his life. You see, the Las Vegas billionaire, the playboy, and here he is in front of his iconic plane, the Spruce Goose. And you see the symbolism of that stop sign, wanting so badly to stop those bad thoughts that were coming into his mind, but unfortunately are being overtaken by that propeller that he's powerless to fight. The next one is called Half Daddy. Mental illness is very opportunistic, and it will go after what you value most. And for me, that's my family and my children. If you were to ask me after and walking around and we have a chance to chat and said, hey Jeff, what gives you the most pleasure or peace of mind? My answer to you might surprise you. It won't be big stuff that I'll talk to you about. What I'll talk to you about is chucking a ball around with my boys in the backyard, reading a book in bed with my daughter, having a cup of coffee maybe with my wife, without these obtrusive thoughts taking me away. Can you imagine what it's like to feel like you're half there when you're with your family? But I'm here today to tell you I'm one of the lucky ones, because as fate would have it, 17 years ago, I was coming home from work one day, and I was desperate like so many people that suffer from mental illness. And I had heard that painting might be good for you. So when you're desperate, you'll try anything. And so I picked up some paint at the store, headed home, and you're probably all familiar with Forrest Gump in the movie and how he ran. Well, you are looking at the Forrest Gump of painting right here. All right, I never stopped. And a bunch of things happened for me. The first thing was I got a sense of control over my illness. Mental illness robs you of that. The second thing was I found some peace of mind that I was so desperate for in my life, at least for a short time when I painted. The third thing that happened is a blank canvas for me created a vehicle for my own vision and creativity. I think we all know in life, whether it's your personal life, your business life, you can be doing things exceedingly well, but you can't control what happens. When I painted, I was in control. And I found that invigorating, to my soul. And last, and certainly, most unexpectedly, I can assure you, people liked my artwork. And that came as a shock, especially to a guy that has absolutely no clue what the hell he's doing, never painted before. And I don't know to this day, I think perhaps people connected to my story, perhaps my willingness to talk openly about my mental illness, which I wasn't ashamed of. In fact, I'm proud of what I've been able to accomplish. Maybe it was my kind of self-taught style that was kind of whimsical and raw. But my own start as an artist is almost comical. I tell people you can't make this stuff up that's happened to me. The painting behind me is called Last Laugh. And this was a painting that every year for the holidays I would take a painting and create a limited edition. I love that, limited edition, like I'm a fancy artist, right? So I had 500 of these things, and I send it out to friends, family, colleagues, and over the years people started to look forward to these things, to the point where people would call me and say, hey Jeff, I got this year's holiday card, I love it. Who's the artist? And I'd be like, me, dude, It got so bad, I kid you not. I would highlight and put my name and put Sharpie stars around 500 cards, so people knew it was my artwork. But all I was doing, at the end of the day, I just painted what I liked. And I like the 1920s, and I like cigars, and I like fedoras, and I like fashion, and I like dames, and I like cocktails. And I guess what must have happened is it created an interesting breed of artwork that people found some interest in. But there was always one redeeming character that you saw in all of my artwork, and you can see it in this painting called Beautiful to Be Us from my very first show, is my faceless characters. Now people assumed, like you guys do, that I'm a deep guy, all right, and that it was the face of mental illness. Now the real reason was I can't draw a goddamn face. People that sell my artwork say, Jeff, you shouldn't tell them that, but hey, I'm as transparent as they get. And check it out. I probably have 500 titles for paintings with no paintings. I'll just hear a cool name or something, and I might eventually back into a painting as inspiration, like this one. This one's called Martini Dreams. And you can imagine all of the due diligence and research that went in to creating that piece of artwork. And the last one I'd like to show you is called Madly in Love. And this is my most treasured and valued piece. I did it with my 4.5-year-old daughter in my studio. And if you come to my home, you'll see it in a prominent spot where it serves as inspiration to me. And a reminder not only of the power of art, but the impact it's had on my life and trying to, and helping me maybe not be that half-daddy that I talked about earlier. So as time went on, again, almost comically, my artwork found its way into a casino. It found its way into bars and restaurants and some galleries and private collections, and actually to the Grammys. And people started paying a lot of money for my artwork. Well, I was embarrassed to be handling my own artwork. It was uncomfortable. So Matthew, who you've met back there, who had at the time a small little marketing company, I said, hey Matt, would you do me a favor? Would you handle the business transaction of my artwork? So I guess Matt became an agent. Sounds cool too, an agent, right? So, well, Matt was not bashful, I can assure you, okay? 2 months later, he had a one-man show for me. One-man show. That doesn't sound like I was like Broadway or something, So I had this show. Matt comes up to me at night, at the end of the day, and he says, Jeff, you're not going to believe it. He says, we sold $15,000 of artwork tonight. And I said, holy crap. And he asked me, he says, what do you want to do with it? I said, I don't know. And then it hit me, just like a lightning bolt. And I'd like to show you. That's why I have this on here. I'm going to show you what happened to me. If you guys give me, let's see, I'll paint this way so everybody can kind of see. I'm going to show you what happened. It doesn't take me long. I had a kid was watching me one day. He said, Jeff, your hands shake when you paint. And I said, yeah, why do you think I have to paint, So. I tell people all the time they're very lucky to, Jim Croce, for those of you that are a little older, Jim Croce, he said he couldn't write it, so he sang it. And fortunately for all of you, I can't write or sing. So I'm using a paintbrush here. Well, there, as Matt asked me that question, I got hit by that lightning bolt. And I turned around to him and I said, Matt, I paint. It makes me feel better. Maybe it'll help others. That's it. No more. 2 weeks later, I walked down the hallway of a psychiatric hospital that not only was I a board member, but I was a patient. And I had a bag over my shoulder. I looked like Santa Claus, okay? And I had canvases in it and brushes and paints, no clue what the heck I was doing. And I walked onto a children's psychiatric unit, and I don't know if anybody's been to a children's psychiatric unit. It's not a happy place. It's a sad place, especially when you got 3 small kids. And it hit me hard. And I walked into that unit, and I started. And I had no clue what I was doing. First class, I kid you not, one of the first classes we did, a young boy by the name of Brandon. I put my hand out. The kids all walk in, and I shake their hands. And this young boy, I put my hand out, and he runs by me, and then runs back out the door. And I'm like, whew. Therapist comes up to me, and he apologizes for this young man. And he says, Jeff, the young man hears voices. So I take a deep breath, and I said, holy crap. What have I got myself into here? I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I'm a nobody. just a guy who wanted to help some people. So I did the only thing I was comfortable with. I told these kids my story. And I tried to give them some hope and some optimism and use a little humor on the subject. So Brandon actually had come back into the room, and he started painting. And I said to him, I joke around with the kids, I said, you must be one of these prodigies that they brought in from the Art Academy to make me look bad. So he starts laughing, and I kid you not, he goes, no, I'm not from the Art Academy. He says, I'm mentally ill. And I stop in my tracks, and I looked at him, and I said, so am I. Well, as if it couldn't get any more emotional in that room that day, Brandon did his painting, and he finished it. And he came up to my wife, and he handed her the painting. And he asked if that painting could go in our studio next to mine. Well, I got to the car after, and I do what I do so often. I got in my car, and I broke down and cried. But this time I cried because I knew I had stumbled on something. I had stumbled on something that was, part motivational, part inspirational, part you can do it, all kind of wrapped into this message of hope. And I remember I was talking to Matt, and Matt said, geez, that sounds great. He says, you got to have a name for it. So I said, why don't we call it Paint for Peace, peace of mind. 3 years later, I'm proud to tell you, we've taken that program to over 10,000 children and adults into every possible demographics that exist. I personally have taught it anywhere I could go. I've taught it to advanced Alzheimer's units, cancer patients, inner city schools, boys and girls clubs, high schools, colleges, boardrooms, you name it, we've been there. And I've seen the power of art firsthand. And I could stand here for the balance of the day. Doug, if you want to cancel whatever you guys are doing the rest of the day, and I'll probably tell you all kinds of stories, get you guys crying too. And I'll tell you about the 8-year-old kid who spends 50 minutes with me. 50 minutes, and he tells me it's the best day of his life. Now, whether it was the best day of his life or not, does it matter? He thought it was. And I can tell you about in your guys' field. I'm preaching to the choir. The father puts his hand on my shoulder, only like a father could, and thanks me. Thanks me not just for the relief that he saw his son get, but for that he and his wife as well. Well, I got to the point in my life where I wanted to do more, and I wasn't sure what. The Discovery Channel had found out about my story and came to Rhode Island, and my wife and I, Jen, gave them complete access to our family for 3 days. 3 days in the hope of putting a face on mental illness for the world. And the piece came out a few months later, and the first time you watch it, you hope they do a good job. And I watched it, and it was something we were really proud of, and I hope someday everybody here might have an opportunity to watch that piece. But my life changed rewatching it. Not the first time, the second, the third, maybe the fourth time. And I want to explain that to you. And it came in the form of a very simple bullseye. Just like this. On the outside, as I watched that video, on the outside of the bullseye, I'm the CEO of a company, and I'm a decent CEO. I can assure you there are better CEOs than me, like the guy sitting at the end of the table right there, okay? Marketing based, it got smaller. Artist, smaller. Then it started getting really small, someone that suffers from mental illness. And as I watched that video, I said, I got it. That was the bullseye. Not despite, but because of my illness. I thought that perhaps I might be someone that could articulate and communicate a message of hope and acceptance and had a creative vision for what it might take to change things. And the reason is I live it, okay? I knew how big of an opportunity there was. 1 out of 4 people in this country suffer from a diagnosable mental illness. OCD, PTSD, anxiety, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, I could go on and on. There's not a single person in this room today, I assure you, that does not have a connection in some way to mental illness. 2/3 of us will not get the help that we need or deserve due to stigma. And that bugged the crap out of me. And I didn't understand how it was possible that you could go down in the corner and walk into a CVS and you could buy a card for your dog, but you couldn't buy a card for me. Something was wrong with that. And I knew that there was a yellow bracelet. Thank you. I knew there was a pink ribbon. AIDS had product red. Seemed to me like everybody had something. Everybody had something but 26% of the population. And the tens and the millions of people like myself and their families to rally behind. What do we have? Nothing. Nothing. So I got this crazy idea. That I would try to make mental illness cool. Not cool to have it, because I can assure you, it is not cool to have it, okay? But cool to support it. And to do that, we knew we'd have to have some type of vehicle that would allow society and the world for the first time to support mental illness. 8 years ago, I had painted this symbol that's behind me. This simple combination of two icons. But for me, it was very personal. And it stood for peace of mind and love in my heart, the two things that I was so desperate for in my own life. So today, as I'm in front of you, and this is ironic as I travel around the country, the world saying this, it's my dream that this symbol right here will do for mental illness what you guys have done for cancer. And to do that, we came up with a simple formula, and we called it Wear, Share, and Experience. Every time one of those three things are being done, we're one step closer to breaking down stigma. Every time somebody is wearing a product or merchandise, we're giving a voice to mental illness that they haven't had before. I remember when we first started, I had a class in an adult unit, a lockdown unit, and I gave them all Peace Love shirts to wear so they didn't get paint on them, right? Makes sense. Well, we had a 50-minute class, and at the end of by the end of the class, 8 of those 12 people had asked either myself or my wife where they could buy the shirt. I can assure you, nobody is walking out of a hospital with a shirt that says, "I'm mentally ill." Share. Giving people an opportunity to share their story in connection to mental illness in a positive and celebratory way. Just a few weeks ago, I was sharing with Doug last night. Matt and I were visiting the CEO of the Craft and Hobby Association about how we're going to work together. And we sat at a table like this with 12 people and the CEO of the company. At the top of the meeting, he says, "Well, why don't we go around, everybody introduce themselves and what they do." So he points to the first girl, Jennifer, and says, "Jennifer, why don't you start?" Well, I saw her take a deep breath and said that she had been on our website, watched one of our talks, and how much art had meant in her life. And she got up and disclosed that she had been a recovering alcoholic for 8 years, and that she was suffering from depression. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. The CEO of the company gets up, does probably what any of us, I think, would have done, and he walked across the table and gave her a hug and said how courageous it was for her to have done that, and what a breakthrough it was for her in her life. And the next thing is, it gets better. 2 days later, I get an email from her, and it says, "Jeff, thanks for you guys coming, and I want you to know that 3 out of my 8 colleagues came up to me in the last 2 days and shared their story and their connection to mental illness." And then the last is experience, which is my favorite. That's what I like to do. I like to get out. I like to tell my story, our story. I like to teach kids. I like to see people find some peace of mind, just like I have. This picture right here is from the Las Vegas Academy. Just a few weeks ago, we were out visiting the downtown project, and I can't tell you what a great time we had. 50, 60 families, kids, adults, having an unbelievable time, you know, sharing their stories. And I actually had the opportunity, in all the thousands of people I did, I saw a young boy, Declan, take our experience to a new height that I didn't even think was possible. But I'd like to just leave you with one last story, if I can. Every Tuesday, I'm out in the community teaching. And just recently, I was at a children's hospital, and a young girl, Stacy, was sitting there with a blank canvas. Not that uncommon. She just couldn't get started. So I encouraged her to, you know, paint what you like, maybe what gives you a little peace of mind. And I left her, and I walked around the table. It's about maybe 12 kids. And I came back, and it didn't take 10 minutes, it took 5 minutes, maybe 4 minutes. And I saw this on the canvas, right here. And I leaned over and I said to you, can you explain what this means? And she said to me, you know, Jeff, no matter what you have going on in life, there's always hope. So you can always dream big. Yeah, I can't say it any better than that girl did. I can't. So, dream big. Don't be scared to follow your dreams, because this group knows each and every one of us can make a difference in the world. Thank you.